I have the Houston Texans going to the Super Bowl this year. That's how well they're playing right now. They're the team that nobody wants to play, and I just think that they have something in their team, which is their defense, that I think is the most consistent unit in football. It's the unit that I don't think anybody wants to deal with, and because of that, the Houston Texans are absolutely a threat. The Chicago Bears, they might miss the playoffs this year. And even if they do, this is still a successful season for them. If you would have told a Bears fan before the season that they would have went 9-8 before the season, let's just say hypothetically that's their record at the end of the year. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. You have to feel excited if you're a Bears fan because of the fact that you have had so much inconsistency with the head coach and the quarterback. And now this is year one of a partnership between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, where you can actually say, I see the vision. What annoys me about the Shedeur Sanders situation is that people will say when Shedeur Sanders was a third string quarterback, he can't be complaining because he was a 5th round pick. But when Shedeur Sanders is playing and he's playing pretty damn well, I don't hear anybody saying, wow, this is a 5th round pick that's playing like that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for December 8th, 2025. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the Bears and what happened in their game yesterday with the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about the Houston Texans, and I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders and his performance yesterday against the Tennessee Titans. But before we get into the episode, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. So I want to start this episode off by talking about the Houston Texans. One thing that comes to mind when I think about the Houston Texans, this is the team that is getting hot at the right moment. Now, we know what the Houston Texans are. They are a defensive-led football team. Their defense is outstanding, but I think that their offense is good enough to put enough points on the board that they can beat any team in the AFC. Guys, remember, the Broncos won a Super Bowl with the best defense in the NFL that year, with Peyton Manning, who could barely throw the ball 15 yards down the field. So this idea that CJ Stroud isn't good enough with this team to win a Super Bowl, I completely disagree with that. I think CJ Stroud actually played a very good game yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs, but I just look at this defense and I say this is going to lead them through the playoffs. They could travel anywhere and win games because of how good their defense is playing right now. It's a very talented unit, but not only is it talented, it's very well coached as well. And because of that, when you look at the AFC, who are you definitively taking over the Houston Texans right now? Do you think it's for sure a certainty that the Broncos, the Patriots, the Bills, any of these teams can definitively beat the Houston Texans? I don't think that that's the case. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go this far. I have the Houston Texans going to the Super Bowl this year. That's how well they're playing right now. They're the team that nobody wants to play, and I just think that they have something in their team, which is their defense, that I think is the most consistent unit in football. It's the unit that I don't think anybody wants to deal with, and because of that, the Houston Texans are absolutely a threat. And I want to talk about CJ Stroud. What I noticed about CJ Stroud in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, was he perfect? No. But for the very first time in his career, he looked like somebody that didn't have the weight of an organization on his shoulders. And I think that when you look at CJ Stroud as a player, that is going to be a very dangerous thing for the AFC, because as long as CJ Stroud can be really good in spots when it comes to making plays down the field, and he does not turn the football over, this team is going to be so incredibly difficult to beat because they have such a consistent strategy. We're going to hold teams to under 20 points offense. Can you score more than 20 points? And can CJ Stroud lead a unit like the Houston Texans offense to over 20 points a game? There's no doubt in my mind. Yes, he's not the player that he was his rookie season. Okay, I got it. The offensive line has not played well. I got it. But at the same time, you don't need a perfect offense with the defense that they have to go ahead and get to a Super Bowl and potentially win it. Not in the NFL this year, where I don't think that there's a single great team. So that's what I really liked about CJ Stroud in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He looked very comfortable, even though he was getting blitzed, even though the pass rush was getting home and Chris Jones was absolutely fantastic. He looked comfortable because he knew that he did not need to do anything crazy to win this game because of how well that defense is playing. And that is a great sign for the Houston Texans and that organization. And The reason why I just feel so good about this team, I talked about the defense, but it is partially because of the offense. I think the offense can do some things, right? I think that they could do enough to get them to a point where they can win games wherever they go. And when you look at their division, they could win their division. They could be hosting a home playoff game. But then when you look at the places that they would have to go into Denver. That would be a very interesting matchup. And the reason why I say that is because they're two teams that are very similar. Their offenses aren't great, but their defenses are outstanding. So that's why I think that that would be a very interesting matchup. And maybe I would go the Broncos way, but I actually think that I would favor the Texans in that matchup. And the reason why is because I just trust CJ Stroud more than I trust Bo Nix. I think that they have a much greater potential of making explosive plays offensively with the Houston Texans than they do with the Denver Broncos, because CJ Stroud can make plays down the field. They have receivers that can make plays down the field. I think they have some weapons here. It's not great. It's not amazing. But again, it's a flawed offense. And when you look at the rest of the AFC, I'm going to continue to say this. Do they have flaws on their team, the Houston Texans? Yes. Name me a perfect team in the AFC, and let alone not just the NFL, but in the AFC. That's why I say they're an interesting team come playoff time, because they're getting hot at the right time. And I think that that is just such an underrated thing that, I don't think enough people take into consideration. And the reason why I think the Texans could make the Super Bowl this year is because of the fact that when you look at the AFC, what is the AFC fill of this year when it comes to the quarterback position? Young quarterbacks. Look at the two quarterbacks at the top of the conference right now, Bo Nix and Drake May. When it comes to record-wise, you can absolutely dial some things up against those quarterbacks. Drake May's been outstanding this year, no doubt about it. But I think in a playoff atmosphere, when you go up against the type of defense that the Houston Texans have, they can absolutely cause some problems for Drake May. And that's why I just look at this team and I say they're not the most talented when it comes to a whole team perspective. But that defense is so damn good and they're so well coached that I just don't think that there's a team in the AFC at the current moment that's going to be able to consistently move the ball on them, drive in and drive out over the course of a 60-minute game. And because of that, I think their offense is just going to do enough. I mean, it's such a good combination of their pass rush is outstanding. The edges are playing at a really high level. They're good at every level of the field, right? They have a pass rush and they have a secondary that is opportunistic and can get takeaways. And when you could get your offense the ball more, you don't have to have the Dallas Cowboys offense or the Los Angeles Rams offense. You could just have an offense that you feel like can consistently move the ball. And maybe not consistently, but an offense that can put some drives together is what I'll say. Now, am I worried about CJ Stroud in a playoff spot here with this team? I'm not overly worried, just because, again, what I really loved about this Kansas City Chiefs game is that this looks like a guy that does not feel like he has to make plays at every second of the game. He can check down on third down, punt the ball away, and feel confident with his defense. He doesn't have to try and fit the ball into tight windows. He doesn't have to do that anymore. But what I like about CJ Stroud with this team in particular is the fact that he can make the throws that you need a quarterback to make. Can he consistently do it? I think he could get to a point where he can consistently do it, but he can make the throws that I don't think a Bo Nix can make. I think Drake May can make I think Drake May is a better quarterback at the current moment. But do I believe in the Patriots defense as much as I believe in the Texans? No. Again, what team in the AFC do you feel confident saying this is a team that could string together 3 wins and get to a Super Bowl? Or even 2 wins against the top competition when it comes to the Denver Broncos? I don't know. And that's why I say, this is the time of the year that you want to come on if you're a franchise or if you're a football team, right? Yeah, I think that you have to give a lot of credit to D'Amico Ryans. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Nick Caserio's. This was a team that looked like it was dead in the water. And why I really am impressed with this team is because CJ Stroud has missed time and they were still able to win games with a backup quarterback. That to me is the most impressive thing about this Texans team. They've been consistent throughout the course of the season with this defense. They're talented. They have big names on there, and they're very well coached. And they are as dangerous as they come postseason time. Hey, quick break. Thank you guys for tuning into the CEO Sports Show. If you guys haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get back into the show. So I want to spend some time talking about the Chicago Bears. And they had a disappointing loss yesterday against the Green Bay Packers. It wasn't disappointing in like a bad way. It's just, I wish we would have came up with a score there at the end of the game that would have tied the game there and put us in a position to win the game. I'm not a Bears fan, by the way, so I'm talking we and us. I'm just saying, like, from a Bears fan's perspective. Here's my take about the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, they might miss the playoffs this year. And even if they do, this is still a successful season for them. If you would have told a Bears fan before the season that they would have went 9-8 before the season, let's just say hypothetically that's their record at the end of the year. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. You have to feel excited if you're a Bears fan because of the fact that you have had so much inconsistency with the head coach and the quarterback. And now this is year one of a partnership between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, where you can actually say, I see the vision. I see consistency with the quarterback and the head coach going forward here for 10 plus years. And what I really like about what Ben Johnson has done with Caleb Williams is he's making him play like a professional quarterback. You could say Caleb Williams hasn't lived up to the billing of a number one overall pick. Okay, not yet to this point of his career. Fine, that's a fair point. But when I look at Caleb Williams from this second season and compare that to his rookie season and see the quarterback that he has become a professional quarterback. And what I like about Ben Johnson and what he's doing with Caleb Williams right now is, hey, this isn't going to be a one-year turnaround where last year you were a disappointing rookie and now you're going to be the best quarterback in the league. It's going to take some time. And I think that you have seen some big-time strides with Caleb Williams as a quarterback under Ben Johnson. And you see that he's letting him use his legs. Caleb Williams' legs are a weapon, but they're a weapon if the play breaks down. It's not your immediate, this is my first resort, is to use my legs. It's no, go through your progressions, and if it's not there, then use your legs. And I think that's what Caleb Williams has done such a good job of doing this year. And that's where I just say, like, whether they're contenders, whether they're pretenders, it does not matter. And the reason why I say it doesn't matter is because you have answers being questioned, you have questions being answered that going into the season, you needed answered. You needed to know if you had a legitimate head coach. You have a legitimate head coach. You needed to know if you have a franchise quarterback. He's on his way to being a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. And that's why, if you're a Bears fan, you need to feel good about this season because not every team's goal is the Super Bowl. 32 teams are not competing for a Super Bowl every single year. There's a handful of teams that are competing for a Super Bowl. There's a handful of teams that are trying to make the playoffs. There's a handful of teams that are just trying to get things back on track with their organization. And then there's a handful of teams that are saying, like, look, we're tearing this down. We're trying to be the number one overall pick, and we're trying to get the best possible draft pick that we can get. And I think that over the past few seasons, the Bears have been trying to get into the playoffs, right? That's been their goal, and they've failed on that goal. With Justin Fields there for a few years, they thought that they built a team that could potentially make the playoffs. They were wrong from that perspective. This year with the Chicago Bears, their goal, I think, was just to get the train back on the tracks, right? And that's what they did this year. I think them making the playoffs would be a drastic step up to where they were. Remember, this is a team that was drafting in the top 10. This is a team that has had disappointing seasons the last few years here. And the goal for this season should have been, let's get the train back on the tracks. And if that was the goal going into this season, they absolutely got the train back on the tracks, because going into this offseason, whether they make the playoffs or whether they don't, you're going to look at the Bears and you're going to be like, that's a team you have to watch out for. That's a team you have to watch out for. And the reason why I say that is because what makes the Bears special to me, because they're the 7th seed in the NFC now. Going into this game, they were the 1 seed. And what I was saying was, what makes the Chicago Bears special is not that they have all this overwhelming talent. They have some young talent that I really like. I really like Odunze, and I think Loveland's doing some things. He's making some progress. I think Luther Burden has started to show up here recently. The offensive line's starting to play better. There are some things that you really like about this team from a personnel perspective. But what I really like about the Chicago Bears is the fact that they go into every game and they have a coaching advantage. They might not have the personnel advantage, but they have the coaching advantage. Ben Johnson is as good as it comes when it comes to dialing up play calls. Dennis Allen, remember with Dennis Allen here, right? Dennis Allen used to have Tom Brady in hell. Dennis Allen has dialed up some of the best quarterbacks that have ever played this game. So I think that when you look at this team, what gives them an advantage on game day is the guys calling plays on the sidelines. And that's so important because what's really good about the Chicago Bears here is that they have a defensive coordinator that I think is outstanding. And when it comes to Dennis Allen, he's not going to be getting a head coaching job anytime soon. I don't think so. I think he's in that category of he's a great defensive coordinator. He's not a good head coach. And if you can find one of those guys, that's a guy that you can have around your organization for 10 plus years. I mean, look at what the Chiefs are doing with Spagnuolo. I mean, if you have the right head coach and you have a defensive coordinator like that, you have consistency with your play calling for 10 plus years. And I cannot tell you how important that is as an organization to have consistency with your play callers when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, because you have an offensive minded head coach who can call plays, and he is a good head coach. This guy is not just an offensive coordinator that's a head coach like Mike McDaniel. This guy is a head coach that calls plays. There's a difference between being an offensive coordinator that's a head coach and being a head coach that's an offensive coordinator. If you know what I mean. What I mean is Ben Johnson's a head coach first, offensive coordinator second. Whereas I look at a guy like Mike McDaniels, he's an offensive coordinator first and a head coach second. Sorry to give Mike McDaniel strays because Mike McDaniel, they've been doing some good things there in Miami recently. And they're on a little bit of a streak here where, they could potentially threaten to make the playoffs here. But that's besides the point. I really like what I'm seeing from the Chicago Bears this year. And I get it. You don't want to do the moral victory thing, but the Chicago Bears going into this game, I mean, it is December 8th right now. It was December 7th yesterday. They were the number one seed in the NFC. If you would have told a Bears fan before the season that they were the number one seed in the NFC on December 7th, they're going to take that 10 times out of 10. And they have a little bit of a difficult schedule coming up here, which is why I'm not 100% convinced that they make the playoffs. But regardless, the goals that they had going into this season have been fulfilled. You have a head coach and you made significant progress at the quarterback position. So from that perspective, as a Bears fan, you need to feel good about this season. Hey, quick break. Thank you guys for tuning into the CEO Sports Show. If you guys haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get back into the show. So I want to finish this episode by talking about Shedeur Sanders and some of the inconsistencies that I see with people's arguments about Shedeur Sanders. So this is where I'm going to start. What annoys me about the Shedeur Sanders situation is that people will say when Shedeur Sanders was a third string quarterback, he can't be complaining because he was a 5th round pick. But when Shedeur Sanders is playing and he's playing pretty damn well, I don't hear anybody saying, wow, this is a 5th round pick that's playing like that, because that's the context that I'm using. If this was a 5th round pick that wasn't named Shedeur Sanders, he played the same way Shedeur played, but he was a different name. He was John Smith or somebody like that. Let's just use that name, for example. People would be saying, wow, this team got a steal with the 5th round pick. This guy could potentially be a franchise quarterback. But because people are holding Shedeur Sanders to the expectations that some people had going into the NFL when it comes to, you were supposed to be a 1st round pick. You should be better than this. Well, that to me, I think is flat out inconsistent. Was Shedeur Sanders perfect? No. He'll tell you that he wasn't perfect. Was he really damn good? Yes, he was really damn good. He was really letting the ball rip down the middle of the field, and some of the throws that he made outside of the numbers was very impressive. He has made a lot of progress as a quarterback. He looks like a guy, I'm not saying he's a franchise quarterback yet, but he's working his way there. He absolutely has made a case that he's becoming a guy that can be a legitimate NFL starting quarterback. And that's what needs to be the conversation here. Wow, look at this 5th round pick that got his opportunity to start and played as well as he did. That's the standard that I'm holding him to, because I was one of those people when he was the third round pick, or when he was the third string quarterback. I said, well, he's a fifth round pick. What do you expect? But I'm also going to keep the same energy when he goes out there and he plays very well. I'm like, wow, he is exceeding all expectations for a fifth round pick rookie, which is what he is. So I think people need to come away from his performance against the Tennessee Titans as, wow, that was a very impressive performance. And this is where I also want to go with it. Kevin Stefanski was not the one that called that last play with the 2-point conversion. If you want to go at Kevin Stefanski, fine, go at Kevin Stefanski for the way he's handled the Shedeur Sanders situation. I personally think it's kind of unfair if you ask me, but put the energy where it needs to go. Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. He was the guy that called the play. This is not an example of Kevin Stefanski not liking Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that there's tension between the two. Do I think that Kevin Stefanski is a big fan of Shedeur Sanders? No. Do I think Kevin Stefanski wanted Dylan Gabriel to be the starter over Shedeur Sanders? Yes, he's proven that. But at the same time, I don't think that there's some awful relationship between the two. I really don't. But what I'm saying is just put the energy where it needs to go. Tommy Rees is the offensive coordinator. Blame him for that play call. It was a bad play call. Shedeur Sanders should have been in for that point of the game. And that's where I will 100% agree with people. But I'll go here with this, right? Shedeur Sanders not being in for that 2-point conversion might have actually been the best thing for him. And here's the reason why. Because there are a lot of people who are fans of Shedeur that are saying, hey, Kevin Stefanski doesn't like Shedeur. So now they can push that narrative out there more. And not only that, you cannot blame Shedeur Sanders for this loss. He was outstanding. If you score 29 points with the Cleveland Browns, with that defense that they have, they should win that football game. But also, the reason why I say it's actually a good thing for Shedeur is because let's just say the Cleveland Browns, because they lost this game, they put themselves in a position to draft a quarterback. Well, there's a lot of people who are fans of Shedeur Sanders that want him out of Cleveland to begin with. So if that's the case and they draft a quarterback, they're just going to trade Shedeur Sanders to another team. And if they don't draft a quarterback, then Shedeur Sanders is probably going to get Jordan Tyson from Arizona State or one of these really good receivers that are going to be in the draft, and he has another weapon to throw the football to. And so that's where I'm looking at this from, and I'm saying, okay, it's actually not a bad thing because you can't blame the loss on Shedeur. You can actually point the finger at Kevin Stefanski, even though I don't think it's fair because it was Tommy Rees that called the play, and the Cleveland Browns put themselves in a position to actually get a really good draft pick to pair with Shedeur if they want to pair him with Shedeur, or draft a quarterback and trade Shedeur to a situation that is probably more favorable for Shedeur. So I don't think it was the worst thing in the world. And here's where I also want to go with this Cleveland Browns conversation as well. I do think both the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski should mutually part ways. Kevin Stefanski has been through a lot as the Cleveland Browns head coach. And I just personally think for him, it would be better to move on because he's going to get job opportunities. There's no doubt about it. And I also think that if the Cleveland Browns want to move forward with Shedeur Sanders, you should get a coach that fully embraces Shedeur Sanders. Do I think that Kevin Stefanski hates Shedeur Sanders? I don't believe that. I really don't. But I also don't think that he's fully embraced him. And now what that allows you as an organization, as the Cleveland Browns to do, is that you can actually go get a guy that embraces Shedeur Sanders, that wants to coach Shedeur Sanders, because this team, this Browns opening, if that becomes available and they move on from Kevin Stefanski, there's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be people that are interested in this job because they just had a fantastic draft in 2025. They added a lot of good players to that team. They have a quarterback who's showing some promise. They're going to have 2 first-round draft picks this upcoming draft. There's some really positive things going on in Cleveland. But again, I just think it's so important that if they want to move on with Shedeur Sanders, not move on from, move on with, they need to find a coach that fully embraces him, that goes into these interviews and says, I look at this guy as a franchise quarterback. This is my plan for Shedeur Sanders. This is what he does well. This is how we're going to enhance those strengths. And this is what he doesn't do well. And this is what we're going to do to try and work on what he doesn't do well. That's what I think the Cleveland Browns should do. And here's my last take when it comes to this whole situation. The Cleveland Browns 2025 draft was fantastic. It was one of the best drafts that we've seen over the past few years here. Mason Graham looks like he's going to be an outstanding player in this league. Quinshon Judkins, Carson Schwarzenegger, Harold Fannin, Shedeur Sanders looks like he could be a franchise quarterback. Those are 5 players right there that can make a big-time difference for your football team, and that's something that you look at going forward if they do end up moving on from Kevin Stefanski, and you could sell that to a coach. You could say, hey, look at the draft that we just had. Now we have more draft capital to go get more talent for this team, and I think they're heading in the right direction here. This, to me, is not just your regular 2-win football team. I think that there's some actual momentum here. I think that when you look at the quarterback, Shedeur Sanders looks like he's showing some promise. When you look at the pieces that they have on this team, when you look at Judkins and Harold Fanning and Jerry Jeudy, maybe they add another receiver. I just think that this team is heading in the right direction. They're going to have really premium draft capital in this upcoming draft. And I think that they have a really good opportunity to capitalize on a window where you have a 5th round pick rookie who's going to be on a 5th round pick wage scale to really stack this roster and put together a team that could compete in the AFC. Can they do it? I'm not 100% sure. But what I'm saying is they're making strides and going in the right direction as an organization when it comes to the personnel side of things. So that's just what I think of the Cleveland Browns. I think even though they lost this game to the Tennessee Titans, if Shedeur Sanders is a franchise quarterback, this team is absolutely heading in the right direction. And I just want to say this because I have been critical of Shedeur Sanders. I have no problem. If he plays well and he proves me wrong, I have no problem sitting here and telling you guys he proved me wrong. You want to know why I have no problem? Because I have no personal feelings towards any of these players. None of these players affect my life on a daily basis. None of these players have done anything wrong to me. So why do I have any type of vitriol towards any of these players? I don't. But when I see certain things from what I saw with Shedeur Sanders, I'm going to criticize him for it. But when I'm starting to see him turn the corner and go in the right direction, I'm going to give him credit for it. It's called being fair. Right? Don't we want people to be fair? I'm trying to be fair here. And as a matter of fact, I think that my take has more credibility knowing that I was critical of Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that takes any credibility away from me at all. As a matter of fact, I think that people who are, pro Shedeur Sanders can say, look at what this guy said about him before and look at what he's saying about him now. He did not change his tone in a bad way. He changed his tone because Shedeur Sanders changed who he was. He wasn't always what we see right now. He's heading in the right direction as both a guy that you could build around as a quarterback and just as a player on the football field. So he deserves credit for that. And I'm going to give him credit for that. Why? Because it's fair. That's going to be it for the CEO Sports Show for today. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.